When it comes to the ultimate driving machine, it doesn't get much better than a BMW M3. That vehicle has long been the benchmark for enthusiasts looking for the ultimate driver's car. However, about 8 years ago, BMW introduced a smaller version of the M3/M4 called the M2. It was based off the current generation 2 Series, and it borrowed a lot of componentry from the then generation BMW M3 competition. Now, last year, BMW introduced an all-new version of the 2 Series, which is why I'm standing by the all-new version of the M2. And like its predecessor, this is also built and sharing components with the current generation M3, which means we have a 3-liter twin-turbo inline-6 under the hood, now developing 453 horsepower, and a standard 6-speed manual transmission. So if you guys are an enthusiast out there looking for the ultimate driving machine, has BMW managed to build a better vehicle than the benchmark? Stay tuned to find out. Now, because this is a BMW M2, I thought I'd start by showing you guys what's underneath the hood, because the M stands for motor. And just like the current generation M3/M4, we have a brand new inline-6 under the hood, now developing 453 horsepower. Now, if you guys are familiar with BMW's engines, you'll know that this is the new S58 twin-turbo 3-liter inline-6. It replaces the old S55 engine, and like I said earlier, it makes 453 horsepower, which is around 48 more than the previous generation M2. This actually has more horsepower than the old M2 CS, which was the higher output version for the previous generation, and it also makes 406 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers are only 20 horsepower shy versus this engine in the M3/M4. Remember, BMW also makes a competition version that makes 503 horsepower in the M3 and M4. This right now is the most powerful version you can get in the M2, at least until a CS comes out. Now, my tester is connected to a 6-speed manual transmission with a limited slip diff. This is rear-wheel drive only. BMW does not offer all-wheel drive on the M2. You guys can also get an 8-speed automatic. With the manual, this will do around 16 in the city, 23 on the highway. Premium gas is going to be required, of course. It has around a 12-gallon gas tank, so the range isn't very good, a little under 300 miles if you're really light on the throttle. And in terms of the performance, BMW claims the manual will do 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds. It has a top speed with the driver's package of 177 miles an hour. And this car sits, it did gain a lot of weight for this new generation. It weighs in at just over 3,700 pounds, which is around 300 pounds heavier than the prior generation M2 with the manual. The automatic is going to add probably around an extra 100 pounds. But let's go ahead and close up the hood and talk about the exterior styling, because that was definitely a point of controversy. BMW in general was introducing a lot of controversial styled vehicles, but I have to say, when I first saw the pictures of this car, didn't love the way it looks, but seeing it in person in this Toronto red metallic, it does look very striking. I mean, it doesn't look great in photos, but in person, it has a certain presence to it. I love the iconic LED headlights you get with this kind of interesting design to the LED daytime running light and the LED turn signal. You can see the BMW exercise restraint here, and they didn't put the massive beaver teeth kidneys on the M3, which is nice. You have instead kind of this like squared off grille with this horizontal slat. It has the M2 badging in there. You have this big gaping intake right here because this engine again requires a lot of cooling, functional cooling as well, functional cooling everywhere around the vehicle. So that's all pretty necessary. And I also like the BMW 50th anniversary badge there instead of the traditional badge. And overall, I just think the car looks fantastic. It's just wide and low. It just has a mean, aggressive stance to it. So whether you love or hate the kind of blocky design, you can't argue that it is certainly very distinctive. Now, moving around the side profile, this is where the M2 got huge for this new generation. It grew by 4 inches, so at an overall length of just over 180 inches long. Its wheelbase grew by 2 inches at 108.7 inches long. This is still around 9 inches shorter than the current generation M4, which is again a coupe, and this vehicle is about the same size as an E92 M3 coupe, which had the high revving 4-liter V8. So again, this car pretty much is the size of an M3 from 2 generations ago. Now, looking at the wheels, you can see my tester has an optional 19-inch staggered wheel setup. This is actually the same size tire and wheel as the M4, so you have a 275 by 35 ZR19 in the front. The rears are staggered. They're 285s in the back by 30, so a little bit fatter tires. We now finally have adaptive suspension on the M2, which the prior generation didn't offer. And then you can see here massive 15-inch slotted ventilated cross-drilled rotors. with a 6-piston red painted caliper. The rear rotors are only slightly smaller at 14.6. The one thing about the M2 is you cannot get this vehicle with the carbon ceramic brakes that you can get on the M3 because, again, BMW wants to keep this at a certain price point. Now, my tester has the carbon package, which includes a carbon fiber roof. You can get this a la carte as well. It also includes those carbon fiber seats, which we'll talk about later on. The mirrors, you can see these are the M-specific mirrors. Love the design. You have an integrated turn signal. There's also a power folding. You have the same door handles here from the BMW i4, which again is kind of an interesting look. And then moving around the rest of the profile here, you can really see how much wider the M2 is. It really shows off how sporty and how aggressive it is. The rear taillights also have a unique look to them with the LED daytime, or the LED light signature, the LED turn signals. You have, again, an M2 badge here, which you can also probably black out. It has that newer BMW badge. And then you can see here down at the rear, BMW M cars are known for their signature quad outlet exhaust. These are not fake. They look fantastic. They're blacked out, which looks really nice. And then this engine sounds phenomenal. Let's go ahead and fire it up so you can hear how it sounds. And all I can say is thank God BMW is still keeping the straight 6 alive, because that sound is just fantastic. Now you can see there's a very tasteful rear lip spoiler here, which I believe you can also black out if you'd like. And then looking at the cargo area, the M2 remains a conventional trunk, and it's actually relatively good in size. The seats fold down in a 40-20-40 manner, and it has around 13.8 cubic feet of storage space, which is actually not bad. You have a little bit of storage here to the side. Underneath the floor here, which is a little bit hard to open up. Yeah, sorry, I'm not going to be able to get it to lift up, but there is no temporary spare. Instead, you just get a relatively good-sized cargo area, and the seats surprisingly still fold down, which is definitely a nice touch. So let's go ahead and move into the interior of the all-new second-generation BMW M2. Before we get inside, I want to show you guys the key fob. You can see here's the current BMW key. It has the typical M colors on the key, but no actual M2 badging on the fob itself. You can see intelligent access key comes standard, and then if you have access to the BMW app on your smartphone, you should also be able to access this vehicle through that app as well. Now, as I approach the car, you can see if you touch that portion, that locks the door, the mirrors automatically fold. You can also set this vehicle to lock and unlock automatically as you approach or walk away from the vehicle, as long as you have the key fob on you. That makes it a really nice touch, but you can see the door handle itself, you just pull it out like that. And then when you open up the door, you can see my tester with the carbon bucket seats. These seats are serious. I mean, they really look like a racing seat with the slits in there for the racing point harness. You have this really aggressively bolstered seats, which have, I believe, 12-way power adjustments with actual lumbar adjustments, although you can't adjust how aggressively these bolsters hug you. And you can see here, I call this the ball buster, because you can really hurt your balls as you get into this vehicle if you're a man. So kind of keep that in mind. These seats are comfortable when you're in them. They're just kind of a pain in the ass to get in and out. So I personally would recommend just getting the regular seats, because I wouldn't track the car that often. But if you do track the car regularly and you're okay with that, you're going to want those seats. Now you can see the door panel has a soft touch injection molded plastic with this kind of interesting texture. I love also the colors that you find here in this little accent piece. This actually lights up at night with the ambient lighting, which looks really nice. You have the leather stitching over here, padded over here. The door itself, you can see hard touch down here with some additional storage. And then you can see here the door is a large door, because this is only available as a 2-door coupe. There's a Grand Coupe model, but it's a completely different car. I would skip that car. And you can see my tester also has the Harman Kardon stereo, which sounds good, but you really should be listening to that engine. Now, this black interior only comes with the competition seats, or the carbon bucket seats. You can also get a brown interior if you guys have the standard seats, which is what I would do. I would go with that in the Zandvoort blue exterior color. But let me go ahead and get inside and avoid crushing my balls as I get in here. But as you can see, once you're in, it's a low step-in height, but you get a really nice snug fit, and it just kind of fits me like a glove because I'm not super tall. As I get in and shut the door, the door has a solid sounding thunk, and I don't know why that opened when I shut the door. It probably wasn't latched properly. Now, starting the vehicle up, you can see my tester has the manual, which I love. This is the standard transmission. You can also get an 8-speed auto at no additional cost, but why would you do that? Get the manual. You can see clutch, put the clutch in, stop button is right here by the shifter. And the vehicle starts right up. It doesn't have a 48 volt mild hybrid assist, so it has a traditional starter noise when you start it up. And then when you want to put it into sport mode here, you can hear it opens up the baffles and the exhaust, and then oh, I love that sound. That sound, rumbly, just pops and bangs, like sonorous. I love the sound of an inline six, especially BMW's inline six. Now, looking at the rest of this interior, you can see this has the newest version of BMW's iDrive 8 system. It's a curved display that's measuring 12.3 inches here, 14.9 inches here. The software is a little bit different than some of the other BMWs on this system. You can see it just looks a little bit different, but it has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It has over-the-air updates. Love how big this screen is. You can see climate control functions have moved into the screen, which doesn't always work for some people, because if you want to adjust that, you kind of have to wait for this to populate, and then you push that, you can go to the actual climate control functions, which this right here I don't love, but it takes, once you get used to it and you have everything set automatically, you won't be touching it too often. But overall, this system here definitely is an eye-opener. It's kind of the centerpiece of the interior. You can see the dashboard has a soft touch injection molded plastic. My tester has a heads-up display for an additional $1,100, along with the embedded navigation. There's carbon fiber, real aluminum trim throughout the interior, which is nice. The steering wheel, you can see this is the M-specific steering wheel with the M1 and M2 customizable driver modes. More carbon fiber on the wheel. You have a leather covering for the airbag cover. The steering wheel itself has manual tilt and telescoping, lots of adjustability. Surprised it's not a flat bottom design, but I love how thick the rim is. This kind of reminds you you're driving a driver's car. The horn sounds good. It doesn't sound puny given this is a small car, so that's definitely nice. Over here you can see you have a volume knob, which is nice. You have touch sensitive buttons here for a skip. You have your rear defrost and your front defogger. My tester is lacking a wireless phone charging pad. That's an a la carte option for $200, which is frustratingly missing. You have a USB-A there, cup holders. You can see more carbon fiber there when you close that lid. The manual on this car has that typical BMW feel. The throws are short. It's a little notchier feeling than I would prefer. Reverses all the way over to the left and then push up. You can see there's the backup camera with trajectory and parking sensors, but no 360 camera. This vehicle doesn't offer that. It's an M2. It's a really small car, or sort of small car, so you kind of don't expect some features like that. You can see here, this is your M mode here, where you can kind of go into a different display here where you can change the look here to go to a sport look. You can also go to a track look, which the track look, you push accessing there, you have to actually tell it to go to track, and you can see here it gives you a unique display. It shuts off the center display there because you don't want to be distracted by that, but you can see it shows fingerprints annoyingly. Bring that display back up if you want by pushing the setup button there, and that'll kind of bring everything back to the way it was. There's a separate exhaust button here where you can open and close the sound control, although I will say that the sound control, the vehicle sounds the loudest when it's actually in its M1 and M2 modes, when you have the engine in sport as well. So that's kind of something to keep in mind if you want the loudest. Your stability control off button is here. When you push that, it gives you 3 different settings: on, MDM, which is a sport, and you can fully defeat it if you guys want to do drifts. This also has the M Drift Analyzer, which I haven't had a chance to test out because I'm on public roads, but it basically will rate how well you do a drift in this vehicle, which I hear is really easy to do. Your iDrive controller is here if you don't want to use the touchscreen, but the touchscreen is really easy to use. It's quick and snappy and nice. You can see padded center console here with a decent amount of storage. There's a USB-A in there as well, and it's a relatively good storage area. Padded center console as well. The seats, you can see they look great. I love the M colors in them, but again, I would probably skip them because they're a little bit too aggressively bolstered to get in and out of in day-to-day driving. The glove compartment you can see here is damped and it's lined with felt. It's a bin style. It's actually a pretty big size. No sunroof on this vehicle. You can't get a sunroof. You can only get a carbon fiber roof or a steel roof, so that's something to keep in mind. But overall, the interior definitely has a more Spartan feel to it. It doesn't feel luxurious, but it feels like a driver's car. It has good tech as well. You can get heated seats. My tester has heated seats, as you can see from the climate menu here. It has heated seats, but you cannot get cooled seats. Cooled seats aren't available. At least you do have 2-person memory and you have power seats, but again, there are some options that you kind of have to save up for the M3 and M4, which is why those vehicles are significantly more expensive. But let's go ahead and hop into the backseat area of this vehicle, which is going to be small. I'm actually going to move to the other side because I want to show you guys, most people are probably going to be getting in from the passenger side anyways. Now, when you want to get into the back, you just basically pull this strap here. Once you pull that forward, it manually slides out of the, or it manually reclines, and then it starts to power slide itself out of the way. Now, back here you can see it is gonna be tight. This vehicle here is a 4-seater. There's no middle seat over here, but as you can see, once I get back here, pull that seat back. For somebody that's my height, I'm 5'7", there's around 32 inches of legroom back here, which 32 is small, but you can see I actually have foot space. My knees aren't hitting this seat back just yet. You can see the seats themselves look beautiful from back here with the carbon fiber. You do have rear seat air vents, so there's actually 3-zone climate control, which is kind of unexpected. No heated rear seats. There is no, or there's like no seat here, but you can fold this down to sort of give you an armrest, although it's not really an armrest, it's the pass-through here for the trunk area. I will say, however, once I sit back here, my head is touching the ceiling, so even my height, 5'7", it's not much in terms of headroom. At least it's nice and padded over here. Soft touch materials here. There's a nice window here, which kind of gives you a decent view. But overall, legroom back here is fine for somebody my height. If you're over 6 foot, forget about it though, because even though I'm 5'7", the headroom here is definitely lacking. All right, so here we are, finally getting behind the wheel of the brand new BMW M2. Now, as you guys know, drivers' cars are becoming fewer and far between, so BMW releasing basically an M4 Lite is a huge nod to enthusiasts, and we have a huge bump in power this year, nearly 50 more horsepower than the prior generation, and this thing really has only 20 less horsepower than an M4, which is considerably more expensive. Now, the model that I'm testing is the 6-speed manual, so this is not the quickest M2 offering. BMW says with launch control, this vehicle will do 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, which is quick, but as you guys know, EVs have kind of made things even more ridiculous in terms of speed. I will say that the competition seats that are the carbon seats that my tester has, they are really comfortable once you're actually in the seats. It just takes a little bit of time to get in and out of the seats, especially if you guys aren't quite as limber as you used to be. But let's go ahead and test out what we can get, or let's go ahead and see what this vehicle is like to drive, because I was super excited to drive this car when BMW first dropped it off. I was a little sad that I wasn't able to go to the median drive, but the manual is really easy to drive. That's kind of the beauty about it. But let's go ahead and talk about performance, because 0 to 60, BMW says is 4.2 seconds. Now, to engage that, to access that, you have to put it into M dynamic mode, which means you have to turn the stability control into its sportier setting, which is called MDM, M dynamic mode. And then you have to basically put the car in first, floor the accelerator, and then release the clutch. So that'll take like a less than a second or so for it to build up the revs, but it should kind of modulate the power here so you don't have to worry about wheel spin. So let's go ahead and see what we can get here. It's in M dynamic mode. We will floor it, and then it'll say preparing launch control. Okay, 0 to 60 in 4.85 seconds there, and it actually will hit 60 in second gear. Now, that is obviously a lot slower than BMW's claim. Now, granted, I'm not on a prep surface. There was a smidge of wheel spin, although I'm surprised the launch control actually works pretty well at modulating the wheel spin, controlling it, because this is a rear drive car with 453 horsepower. It's kind of scary if you guys aren't quite the expert at driving a manual. We've got these Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires, 285 width in the back, so they are really fat tires, and they're gonna help put that power down, which is nice. But let's go ahead and see what we get right here on this little stretch. Remember, I'm still in M dynamic mode, so engaging the launch control, preparing it. This thing is fast. Much better there, 4.36 seconds there. Wow, so I got a much better launch there. And this is with it more going slightly uphill. So BMW's claim of 4.2, we'll try it again later on our last stretch over there. But man, this thing is one of the quickest accelerating manuals I've ever driven. And it's so easy to drive. That's the beauty about this, is BMW's M cars, their prior generation, used to be so tail happy they couldn't put the power down. But BMW has pretty much solved that. This car definitely puts the power down a lot better now, even though this is like the lightest, the smallest of of M cars. It just feels so quick. It feels so sharp. It just has this kind of effortless driver's car feel to it. The steering, while it is a little bit light and numb, devoid of feel, it is very quick and very precise. It literally turns direction so quickly every time I turn the wheel. It's very darty. It's actually almost too quick at times. The seats, as I mentioned earlier, really hold you in place, but I have to say I hate this little hard carbon fiber area that's basically a ball crusher if you're a man, because it just kind of gets in the way a little bit at times. But the seats are effective once you're actually in the seats. They hold you in place very nicely. It's what you expect from a vehicle that's a driver's car. Although, I think if I was not going to track this car very often, I probably wouldn't get these seats because they're a little too much in day-to-day driving. God, I love the way this thing sounds too. The sound of that 3-liter twin-turbo inline-six. It makes some synthesized noise, but you hear the crackles and the pops from the exhaust. It's just fantastic. Makes this thing feel really, really special when you're driving it. But let's go ahead and try it really quick on this final stretch. Let's see if we can get closer to that 4.2 mark. We're in first, floor it, preparing launch control. Wow, there we go, 3.88 seconds. All right, this makes this like one of the quickest accelerating manuals. I think I got a slightly quicker time in a Targa Ford GTS 911. Oh my God, this thing is absolutely bonkers insane. Oh, this thing just wants to let the tail step out every time. What a joy. What an absolute riot. No, I haven't had a chance to test out like an M3 manual for you guys on the channel, like do a 0 to 60, but that time is seriously impressive. I was not expecting it to be a half a second quicker than BMW's claim. 3.88, 3.9, that's what they claim for the automatic. So I suspect the automatic's probably closer to 3.5 seconds. Oh, but that is just absolutely wild. I love this car. This thing literally feels like a pure driver's car. I mean, compared to the competitors, the Audi RS3, Mercedes-AMG CLA 45, this is the one that you're gonna want as an enthusiast because it's the only one with a manual. It's the only one with rear-wheel drive. I mean, yes, all-wheel drive is more effective at giving you quicker acceleration times, but that time, guys, pretty much matches the almost matches the RS3 that I last tested. I think I got 3.7 or 3.6 for that car. So yeah, this is fast. This is really fast. And then the fact that it's a manual, just listen to that. Oh, the active rev matching is good. The way it puts down the power, so much power, it just keeps pulling. Now, it doesn't pull quite as hard as the last M3 competition that I drove, but this is still phenomenal, guys. This is performance that outdoes the old M2 CS, which is just crazy. That was the pinnacle at one point. I imagine BMW is working on a CS version of this as well. The clutch is also light. It engages in the middle of the travel, so it's relatively easy to drive. But let's go ahead and take it out of M mode here and just talk about really quickly what this car is like to drive in the real world when you're just driving it. And when you take it out of the M mode where the exhaust baffles close, it actually gets relatively quiet in here. The ride is firm. It's a stiff ride. We do have adaptive dampers, which is something the old M2 didn't have. So it is agreeable, except when you're on like really, really crappy road surfaces, it's gonna be a little bumpy. But I took this thing on a 3-hour drive back from Newark, New Jersey back home, and I was comfortable. The seats, once you're in them, like I said, they're comfortable for me. They're hard to get in and out of, but the ride is fine. It's noisy in here. You're gonna hear a lot of road noise. You'll hear that engine as well, but it's a good sound. So is this a good road trip car? It's doable. It's just not the most comfortable, and that's expected because it's an M2. It's their smallest M car. And then in terms of fuel economy, I was averaging around 16 mpg in my mixed driving, which is mostly city, driving like a complete jerk, which is how you're going to want to drive this thing. And now on the highway, I did get it up to 25 mpg, was actually not bad. And that's on premium gas. This thing will do about 300 miles on a full tank on the highway, which is not great. It'll do around 200-ish in the city when you're driving it like a complete jerk. But this thing puts an even bigger smile on my face than the M3 and M4. It feels more approachable. You can approach the limits of this car a little bit better. It's still tail happy, yet it's very forgiving. It puts the power down basically how I wouldn't expect a 450 horsepower rear-wheel drive car to do so, thanks to that limited slip diff, because of those fat tires. The Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires are also fantastic. But overall, this is definitely one of my most favorite driver's cars that I've driven so far this year. I mean, it is really a constant reminder that BMW knows how to build the ultimate driving machine, especially when they put their mind to it. And the other cool thing about this car is it weighs 3,800 pounds, but it shrinks. It doesn't feel that heavy and fat when you're behind the wheel attacking your favorite back roads. So after spending a full week with the smallest member of the BMW M car family, I have to say, if you guys have driven the current generation M3/M4, you're gonna get behind the wheel of this vehicle and just feel right at home, because this really is an M4 Lite in the way it feels and the way it accelerates. The interior also has the same feel with those competition seats, which hold you in place nicely. If you guys plan to track the car, highly recommend the seats. If you don't plan to do it very often, I would probably just go for the regular seats and save myself $5,000. In terms of the exterior styling, that's always a subjective thing, but this car definitely gets a lot of attention out there, especially when another performance car drives by. Enthusiasts just know what this is. They love the size of it, they love the look, they love the presence, and they also love the sound. This vehicle here, as you guys saw, 0 to 60 in 3.88 seconds. It was just a lot quicker than I expected. I wasn't expecting a manual car to launch as well as it does, especially being that this car is only two-wheel drive, it's rear-wheel drive. But as you guys know, with BMWs, they tend to underrate this engine, so I'm not surprised this vehicle is quicker than BMW's actual claim. Now, in terms of gripes, it's really hard to find gripes with this vehicle. I wish BMW offered a sunroof. I wish they offered more color options on this vehicle, but as you guys know, this is supposed to be the most affordable way to get into an M car, and that's what it basically shows, because BMW did decontent a little bit, and they don't give you quite the customization. So if you want all that extra stuff with the luxury and the unique colors and such like that, you can still buy a BMW M4, but just know it's gonna cost you significantly more, because this vehicle here starts at just over $62,000 for the base version. It comes pretty well equipped already, so there's not really much options to add. My tester here has the Toronto red color for $600. The carbon package is $9,900, which also includes the carbon fiber around the exterior, those wheels, the carbon fiber roof, the carbon bucket seats. I would skip that option and save myself about $10,000. I probably would go with the Zandvoort blue as well. That color is a free color, but my tester here stickers for just under $76,000. I know 76 grand is basically the starting point for an M3 or an M4. An M4 is a little bit more, but for those of you who can skip the carbon package, which I would do, this car here with the Zandvoort blue is around 65 grand with destination, which 65 grand is a steal. For 453 horsepower, it's more powerful than the Mercedes and the Audi, yet it's also more fun. It's the only option with a manual. So with all that said, I would happily recommend this over an M4. Just know that it is going to be smaller, a little bit harder to live with, but it's one of the best driver's cars out there. With all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2023 BMW M2. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.